Well, hello there, Jed Ayres here. Welcome to another edition of The Attic. And this time we find ourselves in sunny Los Angeles, Newport Beach, California, and we've brought The Attic with us here on the road. And today I'm very excited to share with you that we have another industry luminary in end-user compute, Scott Manchester. Scott is a EUC legend, luminary. He's been at Microsoft for over 20 years. He's held positions in networking, consumer, gaming, and he's been in the end-user compute space since 2012, and he's just developed innovation after innovation after innovation. In addition to that, he's an entrepreneur at heart. He's got 3 businesses that he started, and he's a wonderful leader. So super excited to have Scott here today with us, and we're gonna have a great conversation with him about his origin story and about where the EUC space is going. Scott, welcome to The Attic. So wonderful to have you here, and in Southern California. Only the second time we've been able to do The Attic in person, so wonderful to have you here. EUC legend, entrepreneur, great leader. Really excited to talk to you about technology, where EUC is going. But since this is The Attic, we always like to start with origin stories and your personal origin story. So maybe you can start by just sharing with us, where you grew up and what you were like as a kid, that type of thing.
Yeah, well, certainly the attic concept certainly resonates with me because certainly started from humble beginnings, like many of us. So my parents got divorced at a young age, and I went to live with my dad, and we lived all throughout the Seattle and Tacoma area, and my mom lived in the coast of Washington in a little town called Westport. It's a fishing community, and my grandparents are both fishermen and commercial fishermen, so that was kind of a big part of my life. In fact, I paid my way through college in the early days working on charter boats in Westport. Make pretty good money in the summertime, working as a deckhand out there. It was kind of
That's tough work though, right?
It's tough work, and it's another good thing about learning discipline, right? You get up every morning at 5 o'clock, you're at the dock by 5:30, getting everything ready, you're working with people all day long. Sometimes people are sick, sometimes they're having a blast, sometimes they're out drinking too much the night before. You deal with all kinds of people and situations. I think all those experiences, really help shape you and get you ready for, your work life. I went to college there at the University of Washington and my MBA at Washington State University. Always in the shadow of Microsoft. My first real job out of college was working for one of the co-founders of Microsoft, Paul Allen. Worked for him for a few years doing just various, technical, innovative things for him, his various properties and estates and yachts and all kinds of fun technical stuff. Kind of in the home automation
How did you
space.
meet him? That must have been kind of fortuitous to get a job at Vulcan. This is in the early 90s?
Yeah, it was, it would have been about 93, 94. I worked at a little ma and pa computer shop near the UW campus. In fact, I used to put my jacket on after class and service the computers on campus. And one day his IT manager came in and they wanted to order computers for his facility, and ended up getting the opportunity to provide that service, and later they offered me a full-time position there. And after working for Paul, I basically took the work I was doing for him and started a consulting company doing that service for other local folks as well in the home automation industry.
Okay, great. And so were you in an attic or?
Started in a garage.
In a garage,
yeah,
okay.
like many great tech companies, born out of very humble beginnings. So that's kind of the story I had. Is started in a garage and built into something much bigger. And I think it resonates. Certainly looking here at the space where your company started, it certainly feels some connection to that.
Exactly.
As well.
For humble beginnings, I think it sharpens the mind. So how did you end up going from your own startup to Microsoft? What was the path there?
Well, I always, working for Paul and working in the shadows of Microsoft. When I built my company, my home automation company, 90% of my clientele were Microsoft people. In fact, our office, after we moved out of my garage, was right next to Microsoft campus, 1 block away from the campus. So my clientele was all Microsoft people. And when the opportunity came to kind of go do something different, Microsoft was the one and only place I applied to.
Correct.
I've been there 21 years.
What kind of work were you doing actually with your own company?
It's custom home automation systems, so yachts and homes, high-end homes, putting in audio distribution systems, security systems, lighting controls, HVAC controls, things like that.
So back in the day when some of that stuff was very exotic.
When you couldn't buy it on Amazon, and it was something that was a little more eclectic that you had to do a lot of custom programming and such to get those kind of things to work. And at the time, it was sort of the boom of the Microsoft stock, and everybody was calling in rich to Microsoft and building big fancy homes. So automation was a big deal in the Seattle area, especially in the early 2000s.
Yeah, I remember.
My business grew pretty significantly.
Reading about Bill Gates' house and all the automation that he had in his house.
I worked on his house, provided a number of different technologies for that place as well.
Awesome. So tell us about your first job at Microsoft. How you end up at Microsoft as like a product manager? Or?
Actually, I was a technical evangelist.
Okay.
Was my first job.
They still had that name back then, even.
They did, yeah. That role has kind of gone a bit of the wayside within Microsoft. There's still little pockets where you see that title, but for the most part, it's more product managers and then different roles that do a lot of the outbound engagement. And that was really what my role was around, working with partners.
Do you remember who hired you? How did you get hired?
Yeah, so it was Pekka Nikkanen was my manager, and at the time I was working for a home automation company called AMX, and we were building technologies to allow you to use network-based control, IP-based control for audio streaming and such. And I was working on a technology called UPnP, and I ended up doing a session at Windows Hardware Evangelist Conference, Hardware Engineering Conference, WinHEC is what it used to be called. And Pekka was the guy that was kind of brought me in as an external speaker to go present there, and then later, we made a connection and ended up hiring me to go lead that technology within Microsoft.
So then you started 2001. You started in that role. Talk about your progression over the years. It sounds like I know you have a number of patents that you hold that you got while you're in your early years there. So
yeah.
Talk about the progression.
So I started off working in tech evangelist for home networking and home automation. Obviously leveraging the previous experience I had there. And over time, I really wanted to get my hands dirty and start, building and creating products, not just out there talking to partners about existing product. So I transitioned from a technical evangelist role to a lead PM working on networking technologies at Microsoft. And there I created a bunch of IP for Microsoft and created technologies like what's now called Wi-Fi protected setup. So that originally was called Windows Connect Now. It was a technology I developed to make setting up wireless networks easier. So I had 15 patents on that tech. Then I ended up getting into media streaming and media management. I led the development of the media technologies in Windows 7 and Windows 8. And then from there got into the second screen remoting and home automation, virtualization space. Right. Went from game streaming to more enterprise-based solutions, and I've been doing that for the last decade now at Microsoft.
So one of my favorite things I learned about you was that when I turn my phone around and it changes, you are the holder of this patent.
That is my very first patent at Microsoft. Yeah, I did that in 2005. It's called the self-orienting display.
Self-orienting display. So
that's right.
How did this happen?
Just had an idea. I was sitting in my office, and at the time people were starting to really get into adding second graphics cards to their machines and setting up multi-mon. That was kind of the big thing around Microsoft in the early 2000s. And some people would orient their screens this way if they were reading or coding or something, and people would have their screens this way. And it used to be really a challenge, like digging into the graphics drivers to be able to set the orientation to make it different. And at the time, Palm Pilots and iPacs, compact iPacs were kind of the rage as well for portable devices. And I started thinking about, if I could turn my iPac or turn my screen and have it just orient to oriented like my face. So the claims my patent and uses various technologies like your facial recognition. And at the time, there wasn't really a lot of front-facing cameras. It was kind of thinking about where things were going and where the future was. Other claims were like gyrometers, accelerometers, mercury switches, all the technology. If you've ever done patents, it's all about the claims, all the various ways you can accomplish, the idea that you're putting forth. Right. So, yeah, it just kind of came from just trying to figure out how I could do this in a more simpler way.
So it seems to me that you went to one of the world's largest software companies, and you're sort of like a serial entrepreneur inside of Microsoft. You've had a lot of different ideas over the years. And then I read even that you were about 10 years in, and you fell in love with martial arts, and you started your own martial arts company. So tell us a little bit about that.
Another garage startup.
Happened.
Yeah, another garage startup. I wanted to get my kids into martial arts at an early age. And I was a wrestler in high school. My dad was a wrestler, so that was kind of the starting point, was finding a sport that was kind of, would help them grow and get into high school.
Your ears look pretty good for a wrestler.
I've avoided the cauliflower ears pretty well, but I've had a few needles in my ears to drain them over the years. But getting the kids into that sport at an early age was kind of the idea, and it led to us meeting a really great instructor, and we kind of started doing classes in my garage, another starting from humble beginnings thing, and then later led to us starting multiple gyms. Now it's a full franchise business, and we franchise in like 20 states across the U.S. And
I heard it's one of the larger kind of martial arts studios in the Pacific Northwest.
It's actually not a huge facility, but jiu-jitsu in general, that's one of the martial arts that we offer there is a huge, growing I think it's the fastest growing martial arts still. That and Muay Thai, it's to be really popular with the MMA. That's really the basis of that. So we're part of a very big program, nationwide, worldwide around jiu-jitsu.
So can you share any of the principles of that you apply in business?
I think you learn how to just work with people, right? And I think that's one of the core things of being good in business, right? Because it's all about relationships, the relationships we've established over the years and the relationships you've established with other people. It's interesting how important that is to really do anything important. It's about partnering, and I think you learn that in a martial art, especially something really intimate like a combat sport like jiu-jitsu, because if you do it wrong, you could really hurt somebody. You have to really have this contract with the person you're working with. You need to do it in such a way, we call it flow rolling, right? Where you're just moving and letting them get moves and you get moves, and though I wasn't always great at that, that instinct to fight and win comes out sometimes. So you really have to, put yourself in the right headspace to make sure that it's a great experience for both parties. And I think that's a basis for any good partnership.
So let's fast forward to 2012, I think it is, when you said you started working on virtualization.
Yeah, that was about right.
Maybe you can share with us, it sounds like you had some great experiences in different areas at Microsoft, and you landed in this end user compute space. Talk to us about.
Yeah, it was kind of almost, circumstantial, starting in networking and then working on media, then working on second screen remoting. They're all kind of the building blocks of virtualization. So when a role opened up to work on a new incubation team that was working on our first generation game streaming service, I was a natural candidate to go work on that because of my, the areas that I had some expertise in within Microsoft. And I found it really interesting. It brought together all that tech, that I've been working on for so long within Microsoft. And the applications are really compelling when you think about the enterprise space and consumer space and for gaming and all these other scenarios. So it kind of, like many of us, once we dip our toe into the end user compute industry, we just get immersed in it, and just get swallowed up by all the opportunities and activities and things going around that space. So
it's interesting. A lot of people, I don't think, realize that a lot of the innovation for end user compute in the enterprise actually comes from gaming, right? And
gaming's a really compelling scenario, right? And I think it's had its ups and downs in terms of popularity, and it's obviously on a high right now. You see so many of these new services coming out now that offer ways of accessing entertainment, streamed to you. I mean, even things like Netflix, right? Those are all kind of just setting people's mindset that I don't have to own something or physically touch something to be able to consume that content or be immersed in that experience. And virtualization is just basically taking your PC experience and giving you a Netflix-like experience for it, right? You don't have to actually own the disc, or you have to own the media. It could be streamed to you from somewhere else.
Yep, thanks to some of the work you did on networking.
Yeah, well, all of us,
So when I first met you, we were calling you kind of on a regular basis at IGEL, checking in with you on RDP and just where things were going. And I think you sort of, for a couple years, we didn't have a whole lot to talk about. And then all of a sudden, I think it was end of 2017, early 2018, you started to share with us that you were building this spaceship in the garage, and that we were going to have a lot to talk about. So tell us how you ended up really working on a Windows virtual desktop.
Yeah, that's what it was called at the time. So I came over to the RDS team after the game streaming service that we were working on. We kind of shut that down. It was sort of an incubation project. We were funded for a couple of years. And it was a natural, migration for me to go over and work on the RDS team and take some of the technology that I had been working on game streaming, apply some of that tech, and then just work with the great people that had been building that product for many, many years within Microsoft. And I came at an interesting time because we were just getting ready to go to market with Azure Remote App, an early application remoting SaaS service offering that we were building. That was a really innovative product, and the team had so many things that were just way ahead of their time on that product, and unfortunately it just didn't have the right partner extensibility opportunities. It didn't support full desktops on the apps, and some of the core Azure technologies to really make that a viable business weren't in place.
It's all about timing in life, right?
It is, but it's just like anything, going through a V1 experience really helps shape you, and you learn a lot of the mistakes that you can then apply and build things in a different way. So the team they went through a bit of a reorg, and the RDS team basically was left to kind of pick up the pieces after that and decide what we were going to do next. And we thought, there's definitely a market here, and there's definitely a need for a service like this. But if we built something that provided a lot of flexibility for partners to take the product, extend it, build in other tools and services, and wrap around it, add different endpoint devices, add different protocols, add all these things and make it really more of a platform that can be built upon, we probably have a much better opportunity to be successful. And so Azure Virtual Desktop, well, originally it was called Windows Virtual Desktop, was born out of that. So really impressive team that I worked with, the engineers and my peers on the PM side. Everybody just did some real brilliant work, and we were given a lot of latitude. Like you said, we were out in the barn building a spaceship and just given a lot of autonomy to go off and kind of innovate and build something. And by the time we'd put it together and got a chance to put it in front of the leadership team, it was another good timing thing, because the leadership team was hearing from some of our largest customers that we should really have a first-party solution on Azure to allow people to bring their virtualization workloads there and take advantage of it. And also, we saw a real opportunity to create a better experience than skinning Windows Server to make it look like client, to actually take the Windows client and build in a multi-user capability right into the Windows client. So there was a number of folks on my team that really drove that product forward, and that became what's now we call Windows 10 multi-user.
Yeah, which is really one of the greatest innovations from a cost.
It really is. Yeah, it's such a great experience now for people to have a full Windows experience, and for admins to be able to ensure better app compatibility and to have that flow of updates coming from this now enterprise class multi-user environment that basically is the same experience somebody would get on a Windows 10 device or Windows 11 device.
So I'll never forget the very first time we came to Seattle so that you could share with us some of this. And we were with Simon Cleffin, and we said, we're going to take you to
this is the IHOP story.
Fancy breakfast. And yeah, we ended up at the IHOP, and that was kind of a funny moment, which speaks to humility, right? You didn't even have to look at the menu. You knew exactly what you were going to have. They knew who you were.
Egg white omelet.
Exactly, which was great. And obviously we ended up together on the stage at Ignite when you ended up really revealing what you were doing.
There's a common theme here, doesn't it? Like this backdrop of the place where your company started and all these kind of ideas that started off real small that turned into something big. It's definitely a theme.
Yeah, well, talk to us about how you ended up sort of then taking it to Windows 365, because obviously you now had this building block, and in your kind of entrepreneurial bug, that wasn't quite enough. You've now moved to Windows 365. So maybe you can help everybody understand the difference between the two and kind of how they work together.
So just like with AVD, a lot of the genesis of it was driven by our customers and partners kind of help shaping what we should build to support their businesses and the needs of our customers. And we built Azure Virtual Desktop, and we had run a great preview on it about 2 years from the time we had our first customer on it till the time we declared GA. And then I'd been in market for about 6 to 9 months. And again, we had some customers come and saying, look, this Azure Virtual Desktop's awesome, but I don't have a lot of in-house expertise to build and maintain this, as a way that Microsoft could do this, We had a great set of partners out there that were doing a lot of that work, and whether they were building tools or providing support on behalf of the customer. But there's a set of customers that really want one throat to choke, right? They want one vendor that they're getting this end-to-end solution from. And there was enough feedback from customers there that we decided that we probably need to go build something, even another layer above Azure Virtual Desktop that builds on all the amazing innovation and capabilities that Azure Virtual Desktop provides a full SaaS-based solution, so that customers don't even need to have any in-house expertise, and allow them to manage that environment in the same way they manage physical devices, so they can leverage their existing in-house expertise on endpoint management. And so that led to basically walking away from Azure Virtual Desktop so I could focus my time and energy on this new product. And we went dark for a couple of years, as you know. We had to work.
I knew you were working on another spaceship.
Yeah, we're building another spaceship in another distant barn. But we did this, we were building this at a time when COVID kind of, we started the team in January, and then COVID hit in March in earnest. And in fact, it came to, Washington State first in the US. And that shut us all down right at the time we were starting to build the product. But it actually helped us in many ways, because we formed that team and we built the product all working remote. And it was about maybe 6 months that we actually started using the product to be productive and work in a hybrid environment while we were building it for others. So no better way to build a product than actually have to, it's like building the car while you're driving it, right? You know immediately what you need. Well, I need some way to turn this thing. I need some way to stop this thing. And so that was kind of how the product shaped, So we had a great private preview program of us dog fooding it ourselves, right? Like
Champagning it.
Champagning it, there you go. No, remember, humble beginnings. We were dog fooding it.
And so, again, timing, right? Because the world really needed exactly what you were building.
What an incredible timing, like literally within weeks of when the team, was chartered to move forward on this, COVID hit. And the whole world changed, and the need for this technology just went up, exponentially. So it was a really interesting time for us to see how this was affecting, people's work environment, what was happening now that people were trying to be productive working from home, and corporations trying to ensure they could maintain productivity while also ensuring, security, not leaving these holes now that all their workforce was now highly distributed and their corporate assets were now all spread around the world as opposed to being all contained within their corporate offices. So yeah, there's no better way to build a product than to live through the experiences that our customers were and build something that really suits their needs.
So maybe for the audience, just because I'm with IGEL, you can share a little bit about this sort of somewhat fascinating partnership between a Linux German operating system and this American behemoth of an operating system. It probably wouldn't be obvious to a lot of listeners how this would come to pass.
I tell you, and I look back at my career at Microsoft, I've almost always worked with smaller companies to get things moving, get things starting, and build some momentum. And it was really fortunate that breakfast we had at IHOP in Bellevue, right? It was clear that you guys were forward thinking, that you guys were hungry. You guys, I think, were in third spot, in the endpoint device at that point, ready to really move up. And I think that was just a match made in heaven. Like, that was really a great opportunity for us to work together and say, okay, well, we've got this, opportunity, but it's not really spec'd yet. There's a whole bunch of unknowns, and you might be building, doing some coding that you end up throw away because we go in a different direction. And you guys really stepped up to the challenge, you and Jeff and Simon and everybody. Really impressed us early on, and it didn't take long before we started to see results, and you guys making great progress in building some of the first dedicated AVD endpoint devices. In fact, it led to us being on stage to a very, signature moment at Ignite. Was that 2019?
2019, I think.
Yeah, and, it was a pretty significant deal when we were able to announce that not only did we have this great new, capability with these endpoint devices, but we already had customers using it, and we're able to showcase, the value of this.
Yeah, this was a highlight of my career at IGEL for sure, if not my entire tech career. Standing on a stage at Ignite with you, Coca-Cola, Microsoft. It was definitely a unique moment for us as a Linux innovation partner with you.
Yeah, and we're super excited for the opportunities we have to continue to work with your team as we go forward now with Windows 365. And I know there's some really exciting stuff we're working on right now between the two teams here. Yep. That I'm looking forward to sharing again. Maybe in a future session we'll talk about some of the cool stuff we're building now. Some of the things that are happening also with IGEL has, like you said, nothing great is done by yourself. It's the ecosystem. And so for us, from that moment when we were number 3, to be kind of in this number 1 Linux spot, and also now working with all these OEMs as hardware partners, this is like kind of a major milestone for IGEL. Yeah, right? Not only did you guys move up, but you did it without stepping on anybody else. You guys, put them on the bus that you got on, right? Because now your original competitors are now using your products, and I think that's
a
really
Microsoft
cool
play.
Yeah, it works well, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. Well, it's the age-old rule, right? Treat people the way you want to be treated.
That's right.
So I would love to ask you a question, since you've been at Microsoft from 2001 through 2022. You've worked, I think, only under 2 CEOs during that time, but you had 2 very different CEOs, right?
I've actually been there through Gates, Ballmer, and now Satya.
And Satya. So maybe you can share with us a little bit about that, because obviously everybody really aspires to some of the values that Satya brings to the table, and certainly the stock and the strategy have followed, but it also feels like there's a cultural kind of mandate inside of Microsoft. So I'd love to explore that with you.
Yeah, it's certainly been interesting to see, the foundation that Bill started with this company. It definitely was a thing that attracted me to the company. I remember writing an email to Bill G at Microsoft.com when I worked at Vulcan, and told him someday I'm going to be, working for you at Microsoft, and maybe someday I'll be the CEO, naive 20-something kid,
Hey, but it's good to have aspirations.
Yeah, for sure. And when I decided I was going to get into the corporate environment, and I sold my home automation company, like I said, I only applied to one company, and it was because I wanted to work for Bill. I wanted to be there at Microsoft and be part of this amazing journey, working at mom and pop computer shops and watching Windows from 1.0 to evolve. And I really wanted to be part of that. So I was just awestruck, and I had a number of opportunities to work closely with Bill, and it was like a dream come true. And that was really sad when he stepped down, but I was excited because Ballmer brings a lot of energy, and as we all know, his points of view around working with developers, but it's more than developers, just partners in general, right? So he brought a big part of that theme, to Microsoft, and that resonated with me as well, because I always thought that partners is really how you do anything important at Microsoft. And then when Satya took over the reins, the culture, as you pointed out, and everything just changed in a really positive way. And it's been really amazing to see the turnaround and just how well people work together at Microsoft. We talk about partnerships. It's both internal and external that becomes a really important component to do anything big. Windows 365, it sits on top of Azure Virtual Desktop, and we rely on that team so much to deliver the key components of this service, and that partnership is just as critical as
even
any external
your
one.
Own company. Yes.
Yeah, and Satya really lays the foundation to do that, to do big things when you can work with other teams within Microsoft and all collaborate and contribute to doing something big. And Windows 365 is just a great example of that, the kind of thing that can be built under a leader like Satya.
So you've obviously seen three different distinct leadership styles. How do you describe your own leadership qualities? And
well, I'd like to believe that I could take a little piece out of all of those folks. I love the forward thinking and innovation that Bill brings, and I love the energy and the focus on partners that Bill brings. And then I love the people aspect of what Satya brings, really focusing on people and people's growth and diversity. Those are kind of the key themes that he brings, and the cultural change is just phenomenal. Just how quickly things can turn around with the right leaders and the right kind of mentality.
Yeah, I've noticed that you've sort of drafted a very special team of people that are excited to be working alongside you, and certainly that seems like it's contributed to some of the innovation you've been able to deliver.
Absolutely, phenomenal team. Yeah, so I was very fortunate, both with my previous team, my incubation team, working on game streaming, and with Windows 365, everybody was handpicked. So I got to pick people that I worked with in the old Azure Remote App and RDS days, and a few folks from the AVD team. People that had deep expertise in Intune and endpoint management, and then just fresh people with fresh ideas that had no industry experience. And bringing the right mix of those people in has been just an incredible pairing of people that know where the bodies are buried and know a little bit something about the industry and partners, but then people that just aren't bound by any of those things and just think out of the box a bit. And we've done a really good job of mixing in a blend of people at various levels and various diverse backgrounds and expertise in different fields. In fact, we just hired a snowboard instructor.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, they say diversity, right? And it's like a word that's thrown around a lot, but like what you just described really is a cauldron of, people that have unique ideas and are excited to bring some kind of innovation to market.
If you want to build a product that's going to service the world, you have to have representation of the world.
Speaking of talented members of your team, we had the privilege of having one of your brightest on the attic, actually really probably the youngest person we've ever had on the attic, and he is one of those people that's very excited to get up and work for you. He actually relocated across the world to come
you're talking about,
work for you, Christian Brinkhoff, right? And so he mentioned in the attic when he was talking about working for you, how you really balance the aspirations and the hard work to get something to market with family. And I know I got to meet your wife when she came out to Germany, and I can tell that you put family very high and that you have a lot of value around the human component of this. So maybe you can talk a little bit about I think this is a hot topic nowadays with the work-life balance and the mandates. Do you come back to the office, whatever, right? So just talk a little bit about that piece of it.
Yeah, and certainly, it's a big thing at Microsoft trying to find that balance. In the early days of Microsoft, it was notorious that people would have beds in their office and they would just sleep there and work there all the time. And although that can be an exciting thing in certain phases of a company's journey, it's not sustainable. You can't retain and keep good talent, working in that environment. So it's obviously a balance, because when you're building something great and really out in front of the industry trying to be innovative, you got to put the time and energy in and have the right people making the right decisions. but you can't just burn them out, right? And this is, it's a SaaS service offering. This isn't something we ship it and it's in a box and then, we're done and we go on. This is constant innovation, constant development. And so we need these people to be able to be in a very sustainable mode where they can work and feel like they're able to have that balance between their personal lives. So it's important to me, as well it is on the members of the team. We don't always achieve our goals of trying to strike that balance, but we try to make up things when we can. There's obviously ebbs and flows of when things get super busy, and we try to celebrate all the achievements and then take the downtime and do things together. And I think, just like you and I spend time outside of, our work lives doing things, personal things together, I think that's a big part of things as well, is kind of building a good team and having opportunity to get to know them on a more personal basis. Christian has traveled around with me, and we've got to hang out and do different things along with many other members of the team.
I like what he said, I think, on the attic, where he goes to these cities and he makes sure that he seeks out to do one thing in these cities.
He's very good about that, yeah.
Which is good, right? Because then you have a real memory, and also, just sort of opens your mind a little bit.
And then, working in this space, like many of us in this space, like we're building technology that enables people to be productive outside of the office, to be productive anywhere in the world and getting access to corporate resources. So as a leader of a team building this product, obviously that's something we want to enable people to be living the same, scenario that we're building the product to support. So we support full work from home scenarios. And in fact, we encourage people to be in different parts of the world, so they can bring in representation of what's happening in their local, areas that we can include in the product. So we have teams that are highly distributed. Though it was great that Christian decided to move to the US, it wasn't a requirement. He could have stayed in the Netherlands if he wanted to.
So I think it's amazing. You're living this too, right? So every time I talk to you, you've been in Phoenix, and then now you're back in Eastern Washington. So
That's right.
And this was, I think, a principle that before COVID, you probably were pretty resident and thought you needed to be in Redmond. I mean, this probably is a remarkable shift for even you.
Yeah, honestly, I thought I was going to retire, go into the office 5 days a week and then retire and then be able to go do these kind of adventures, living in different parts of the country and traveling and to be able to do that.
You mean you can't get a tan like that in Seattle?
No, this is partially the weekend here in Newport and a little bit of Arizona as well. But yeah, being able to live that and then thinking about the experiences that I want and then making sure that the people within the team are having the same opportunities and experiences and that freedom to be where they want to be and be closer to family or friends or whatever.
And that really comes down to actually delivering results at that point, right? You can see. As long as they're.
We build the technologies that give people their lives back. Oftentimes, when people can get close to family. We've had a number of kids we hired out of college that moved away from their families, moved across the country, and are now going, well, I don't really. I could be back closer to my parents or closer to my friends, and they're actually moving back into those states.
But maybe we'll start to see more multi-generational families together having Sunday dinner.
There you go.
So I know we're going to run out of time here, but I think we got to ask you kind of what you see in the future. The industry is going through a lot of changes right now. Obviously, the two big stakeholders in this space, Citrix at the beginning of the year, merging in with Tibco, which we should see finalized here in the next few weeks, and then VMware and Broadcom last week, right? Like the earth is shifting not only in terms of how this technology is consumed, but where they're consuming it from. And so I'd love to get your thoughts on kind of, how does this play out? What do the next 5 years look like? And
yeah, so we did have an opportunity in April of this year to showcase some of the forward-looking investments that we're thinking about with Windows 365. So we showed 4 different technologies. One was called Windows 365 App, which is probably the shortest term development, where we're bringing the Windows 365 experience natively into Windows. So you won't need to install any software. You can just sign in with your AAD credentials and get access to your Windows 365 without installing any software. And once that software is in box in Windows 11, we start to showcase some of the deep shell integration that we can do. And we showed Windows 365 Switch, which allows you to just basically swipe or click a button and switch between your local experience and the virtualization experience. So if you've got to bring your own PC type of scenario and you're moving between your personal life and work life, just a simple swipe or a click and you're moving between your virtual and local machine. And then we showed a couple of more forward-looking scenarios like Windows 365 Boot, which allows you to pick up a device, log in with your Face ID or any biometrics, and get straight into your Windows 365 cloud experience, bypassing the local operating system.
And I gotta think this is sort of one of the nirvana moments, right, where you just don't have this clunky, get to a desktop, double click on it, wait for 4 minutes for it to load up, and then you're in some virtual world. But to have that sort of like direct boot, this to me seems.
And this is all about TAM expansion. That's really what Windows 365 was about, is extending the total addressable market. And the market as it exists today is largely serving people that can understand those concepts, like an operating system layered on top of an operating system, and an app that's sitting here that's actually running over there, and though it doesn't really have direct connectivity to the other apps running here. Those are pretty complex concepts. We in the end user compute industry, they just take these things for granted. But when you truly want to build something that grows the market, not simply shuffles people from one solution to another, you have to solve some of those problems. You have to make it simpler so that the average person can sit behind this without any special training, without any overhead of IT setting things up, and be productive. So you got to remove those seams. So Windows 365 Swipe, Windows 365 Boot, the Inbox app, and we even showed a forward-looking scenario. We were talking about that 4 to 5 year kind of thing. You're going to see the physical devices and the virtual services start to blend even more so. So we showed this concept of Windows 365 offline, where even in a disconnected state, so normally I get access to my virtual machine, it's streamed across the public internet, but to be able to have that synchronized. So while you're using it, we're actually synchronizing it. If there's any disconnect, that I actually have a copy of that virtual machine locally, and I can run it in a very secure way on specific hardware that supports a very secure environment to run that workload. So I have all the security, capabilities that virtualization traditionally brings forward. So this concept of Windows 365 offline is really the vision, and there's so many click stops along the way that we can do very innovative things. I did another interview just a few months back where we talked about just changing the behavior of OneDrive, for instance. Knowing that I have more than one device, my physical device and my virtual device, just changing the behavior. Like if I open a file in my cloud PC, synchronize that file on my work machines as well. So if I am offline, it's already there waiting for me. So I'm working on a PowerPoint, I've got connectivity, and then I get on the plane and I don't have connectivity. Well, that file's synced to my laptop, so I've got access to it while I'm on the flight. Those are just little things that we can do to start to work towards that full goal.
The great user experience that's seamless across devices.
So we talked about some of those click stops that we'll start to build in those capabilities before we hit that full offline mode. But you're going to see a lot more technologies over the next couple months and years that really build on this. We announced at Build just last week, or 2 weeks ago now, I guess, the Microsoft DevBox, which is another Windows 365 powered solution that enables admins to build out an environment for developers where they can be subscribed to multiple different dev environments and easily create and destroy these environments as they need. Really innovative solution now, really targeting a specific set of users in the space.
That's beautiful, and it seems like the North Stars that you and I first talked about, cost, complexity, connectivity, you're attacking all three of these.
Addressing all of those.
Yeah, that's great. So you may not become the CEO of Microsoft, but I'm not counting you out. But Bill Gates famously said that he wanted to put a PC on every desk. Do you want to put a Windows 365 on every device in the world? What's your aspirational goal?
Our mission statement, right, is to make access to your Windows 365 environment available on any device, anywhere, anytime, and then to do that in more innovative and creative ways. And certainly devices, endpoint devices that allow you access to that, to see that kind of continue to evolve. Maybe soon you'll be able to connect to it from your TV. Or maybe you'll be able to carry a device, like we're all staying in hotels for this event we're at here, right? And like, what if I could bring a puck and plug it into the TV at my hotel and have access to my corporate environment, right? And have a second screen. We carry a laptop, we only got a single screen. What if I could extend my desktop to that big screen that's in that hotel room I'm in now and be able to take Teams calls on that? And just so many areas for innovation now on top of this.
I think Bill would be very happy to see that you're taking his pride and joy Windows and bringing it into the sort of modern.
We were very fortunate in February. So we started the team in January, March timeframe, and around February we had an opportunity to take our vision doc, so the framework of what Windows 365 was going to be, and we got a chance to sit down with Bill and walk him through it, and got to hear firsthand what he thought about it.
Oh, that must have been
it was very inspirational. Yeah, it was very inspirational.
Well, thank you so much for coming down here to Newport, being part of Disrupt. Thank you for the partnership with IGEL and really being a believer in what we could do together. You were one of the first people that really took us and put your arm around us, and we're very appreciative at IGEL for that partnership. And I think we still have a few chapters to write together before this is over. But thank you for being part of the Attic. This is a very special time for us. I'll let you have the last word. We always like to just, this is a pretty big community that we speak to with this, that is in the end user compute space. As you know, it's kind of like a family. I know you were in Phoenix with the end user compute masters group. We all kind of have come up through this last 2 decades together. So, anything you want to share with them as parting words?
I should like to highlight you and your team a bit as well, because this partnership's been very symbiotic, beneficial for both of us. And I think what you guys have done with these events, the last ones we had in person prior to this was in 2020, and man, what a great job you guys did pulling the community together and to be able to share very openly the opportunities. And your competitors were there, and your partners were there, and everybody, and it created this just sense of shields down. We're all just one team here, and the amount of partnerships and innovation and connections that have been made through these events that you guys have created has just been phenomenal. You've been a big part of the growth of the industry. So, partners like you that are willing to just kind of step up and take a bet on something, it's great to see that pay off and for you guys to find success.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. It's a fun backstory, right? A lot of people didn't believe this little German, thin, quiet company had the wherewithal to actually host a EUC forum and a conversation, but it's taken on a life of its own. And given some of the changes in the industry, it's actually an even bigger and more important. We've been told, as I was in 5 of them in Europe over the last month, the partners are really thirsty for this forum to have this conversation. There's so much going on here. So. Yeah, thank you for that, and thank you for being a great sponsor of it and believing in it.
Yeah, cheers.
Great. Well, I get to shake your hand since we're not doing this virtually. Thanks again, and enjoy the rest of the time here.
Looking forward to
in
it.
LA.
Thanks.
Wow, that was amazing. Speaking with Scott Manchester. Stay tuned for really where the future of end user compute is going. He's going to lead us there. So I want to put a quick shout out. The IGEL Attic is a production of IGEL technology. And there's some key staff that help us put this together every time. Nicole Simons, my chief of staff. Ron Bowman is the executive director. We also have a crew that comes together under the supervision of Peter Stepanek, and Jamie Godfrey is the editor. So it's a really amazing team effort to put this together. We hope that you enjoy it. You can subscribe on YouTube, and that will get you all the alerts of as new episodes drop. We also now have it on podcast, so happy to have you listen to this on your favorite podcasts. Until we meet again, please be kind to each other and be well, and we'll see you again somewhere soon. Thank you so much.